$15,000 passively guaranteed is so much better than $100,000 a month, breaking your neck, hustling actively, spending all your cash where literally like, I know what you're talking about. You're going broke till closing. And the minute you get, like, you can't even enjoy the $100,000 in your bank account because everybody's hand is already in it.
What's going on, everybody? This is Chris Naugle, and welcome back to the show. I've got a really ambitious person here talking today about flipping, wholesaling, rentals. But here's the cool part about my guest today. He's only 30 years old. He's 30 years old. He's got 2 daughters on the way, which we're definitely going to get into that, seeing as though I've got a 3-year-old and I can maybe give him some advice. Maybe he can give me some advice either way, but he's got 2 on the way. He's got roughly about 30 doors when it comes to rentals. We'll get into the flipping and the struggles that he's gone through, but 30 doors, 15,000 in cash flow coming in, and he's 30 years old. I think I already mentioned that, but I wanted to make sure you all remembered his age. He started as an entrepreneur in real estate at the age of 21 years old. So I think all of you young folks watching this show today have a lot to learn from Isaac Grace. Isaac, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here with everyone. It's a blessing to be here on your show today.
Awesome. Well, let's just go back. I mean, you're only 30 and, you've done a lot of stuff for a 30-year-old. I mean, starting at 21 years old is really awesome. Most people at 21 are either still in college, still trying to fight the corporate ladder, and just playing that game where you kind of, you went against the grain and you went out there and you did your own thing. Like, tell us a little bit about those humble early days.
Yeah, no, definitely, Chris. When I turned 30, May 18th, I look back on my last 10 years and I said, the biggest thing I'm thankful for is that I invested in myself in my 20s. Most people are kind of still trying to figure themselves out in their 20s. A lot of that came, Chris, from my upbringing. So late in my teenage years, I didn't have a stable household. So, my father was incarcerated majority of my upbringing, all of my upbringing, to be honest. My mother moved down to Riverdale, Georgia, and I was staying with family members going through high school. And I was bouncing around, just getting in trouble in school. My grandmother kicked me out. I moved in with my uncle, who was like 24 years old at the time. He wasn't doing the most productive things with his life. He ended up going to prison. And I found myself going into my senior year of high school at 17. I'm living with a friend that was 20 years old. So, I started getting into some bad things, started like selling drugs, just trying to make ends meet. And that kind of helped me mature faster because I knew that I had to fend for myself. I knew I had to learn how to make money. I did work at McDonald's for a little bit, but it was just the 9 hours a day, the 4 or 5 days a week, and the $300 paycheck was just not cutting it. College was never a discussion. No one ever said, hey, look, go to college, try community college, try, junior college. So, I was always looking for an opportunity at a very young age, so when real estate crossed my window of opportunity, I grabbed onto it because I always wanted to be a boss. I always said that to myself. And when I seen real estate, I said, I don't really got to get my hands dirty. I could wear suits. I could really be that boss that I was trying to become selling drugs, but I just knew the outcome of doing that. So I transitioned quickly when I got with the real estate.
Yeah. So, but how did you land on real estate of all the things? I know you're from New Jersey, you were on the streets doing, the things you were doing, whatever, but why real estate and how did that come in? Because it doesn't seem like that would have just been something like someone came up to you and said, hey, you got to get into real estate. Where did that happen?
No, literally, it did not happen that way. It was literally a blessing from God. That's what I call it.
No, probably was.
The power of the internet, the power of information, like for the millennials, for the generational Z, we are in the information ages. So it's simple as being on YouTube. And I remember one day I was on YouTube just listening to, my typical hip hop music. And there was a suggestion in the corner and it said, 3-time felon turned real estate mogul, millionaire at 28 years old. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I clicked on it and it was my first mentor that I met, guy that goes by the name of Jay Morrison. And I mean, his story was more impressive. At the time I was like, look, I'm not a felon, but I'm on the way to become a felon at the rate I'm going. But if this guy's from New Jersey, was a felon, changed his life and got into real estate, let me hear more about what he has to offer. And the first lesson that I learned from him was like on credit. It was something very simple, how to build credit, got an unsecured credit card. And when I applied that information over 3 months, I was so amazed how I can look at a screen like I'm looking at you right now, listen to what you're telling me, apply it in my own life, and it becomes reality. And I got addicted to the idea of information. And I just kept following him. And I joined this program like within that 3 months, residential real estate investing.
That's wild. It's just, what's wild about it is, somebody with almost a not the similar background, but a background that could have been your similar background, being incarcerated, being from New Jersey, and being around the similar age. Like, that's ironic that just pops up right then and there when you need it. So when you say it was a gift from God, I think you're absolutely correct. Because that's, if everybody that's listening to this right now, think about the likelihood that something like that could have happened in that chronological order. But the other thing too, that I commend you for, is that you actually leaped and you took action. I'm sure his course probably cost some money. How much did you end up spending to have him mentor?
To be honest, it was not a lot at all. It was like $97 a month. This is when, in 2014, courses weren't as big, but it was only $97 per month. So it was like, you know what, this is worth the investment right here.
Yeah, no, it was a different era. And I can tell you, I had an education company called Flip Out Academy in 2014. And, we charged a lot less. I look at what some of the mentors in that are charging nowadays. It's insane compared to what 2014 was. And 2014 was a really unique time in real estate. I mean, I had been buying and flipping real estate. No, just so everybody that's watching, this is the notorious Lazy Cash. He never misses a show. He's our shop cat. He has got his own YouTube channel. So shout out to Lazy Cash YouTube channel for children. So Isaac, when you have your daughters, they might be learning about money from this little guy right here with the Lazy Cash show. But getting back into it, $97 a month. I mean, right now, everybody thinking about that, you'd probably look at that and be like, wow, that's cheap. But back then it wasn't. Back then it was a different game being played. And when we had Flip Out Academy, I mean, we were teaching people how to flip houses. We were going out in the field, and it was a little bit more than 97 a month, but it was very similar. And the other interesting thing is just, at 21 years old, you started doing this. Now, I wasn't that young. I mean, my first flip was in 2006. I would have probably been in my 20s at that point, but not as young as you. And, that's a big step. I mean, did you just know you were headed down the wrong path and you needed to course correct? Or was there some, what I mean, yes, you watched a video, but listen, that's just not enough. What made you actually take the leap to start doing this?
To be honest, Chris, it was because I wasn't happy with my circumstances. A lot of my friends that I was around, they were happy with their circumstances. And I knew that I was better than my surroundings and my environment. I just needed a chance. I wasn't dealt the best hand coming up. As a kid, I wanted to be a football star, to be honest. I played Pop Warner football, played high school. But into high school, I couldn't really focus. So I kind of quit football by my junior year. I stopped dreaming. I kind of lost myself for some time. And I was in like survival mode at 16, 17, 18 years old, where most kids are being going off to college, leaving home, going to these nice universities. Parents are, sending them off with money. And I was trying to find myself because, I just wasn't dealt the best hand. So I always told myself that this is temporary, this situation that I'm in. And when the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to get my glory and I'm going to figure this out myself. I had a little different journey, but when I seen that opportunity, I said, you know what? I don't have the skill sets that it takes to be successful in real estate, but this really, really just seems like something. If I commit to this, where would I say, or where would I be 10 years from now? And that's what I said to myself. I said, 10 years from now, if I don't do this, where am I going to be? And it was only two places I can really just stay, like dead or in jail or living paycheck to paycheck. And I didn't want none of them three options. So I said, I'm going to try to do this. I know it's going to be tough, but I've already been through a lot of stuff. So I said, you know what, I'm going all in.
Wow. I'm going to split screen this. Folks, I hope you're listening to this. And I hope to God, someone listening to this podcast is in a similar situation. You're on the streets, you're dealing in some bad shit, and you're just looking for a way out. But you know, in your network of people, nobody's ever found the way out, or you feel like there's no way out. And then you listen to Isaac right here, similar situation. I just hope somebody's listening, and this is that guiding light for them to say, wow, I can do that too. And I mean, folks, listen, like he found a mentor, and maybe you find a mentor in Isaac. I mean, I don't even know if Isaac does mentorship, but I would assume since that's how he got here, he'd be willing to lend a hand in one way or in one capacity or the other. But let's just kind of go back and forth here a little bit. So far from 21 to 30, how many total properties have you wholesaled, flipped, or, done for rental? What's your total number right now?
Yeah, so our total numbers, we're just over 300 total properties just here at the Jersey Shore. I've dibbled and dabbled in different real estate markets, helping my mentees. But yeah, we're over 300 transactions plus now at this point here. Like I said, I own 30 rentals. I've flipped like 13 properties in the last 3 years. So
a lot of wholesale deals. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because that's usually the first starting place, because you don't need a lot of money. Heck, I mean, realistically, I'm not going to say you don't need any money, because you got to have marketing dollars, but you don't need much. You need time, the ability to go out there and do what everybody else is unwilling to do. So let's just start with that path, and then let's go to flipping. I'm going to have a lot of negative things to say about flipping, especially in this economic environment, but we got to get the bad out with the good, and then we'll move into the rental strategy, and then a little bit about the future. So like talk to the audience a little bit about wholesaling. And, I don't know if that was what you first got into, but like, how has that helped you? And how do you think that could help some of the listeners that are paying attention and tuning into this episode?
Yeah, so great question, Chris. So yes, I did start with wholesaling real estate. My first 5 years was only wholesaling. In between that 5 years, I did buy 2 properties, but it was all through my wholesaling strategies. So I did my first deal in real estate 6 months once I bought that course. The first 2.5 months was all fear. I had fear of the unknown. Again, I was a high school dropout. So once I started learning how I had to find these investors in my market, these wealthy guys, I had to talk with real estate agents, lawyers, and then actual homeowners. I'm not gonna lie, I was so scared. I'm like, man, they gonna know I'm a high school dropout. They gonna know I sell drugs. They gonna know that I'm not qualified for this stuff. And after a while, Chris,
Isaac, I got to stop you right there. Why would you think they would know that? Like, was it just in your head? Like, cause like they didn't know that. Nobody would know that unless you outright told them. Like, what made you think that somebody would know that about you?
It's like a guilt trip. Like you have this guilt trip, like, and that's what holds a lot of people back. And it's funny because a lot of my students do the same exact things. And I just had this guilt trip because I was like, all I did was pay $97 a month to get in this business. I didn't get like a college degree. I didn't really work to be a real estate investor. Like I'm just here. I'm brand new. I'm watching these videos. I don't know how real estate works. So I just had this guilt. Like it was almost like I felt like they would see it through me. And I had all these fears that I built up, so I had analysis paralysis for like the first 2 months. I just kept watching the same videos to the point I can repeat what he was saying word for word on the video. And then eventually I said, you know what? I got to go out there and do it. So from there, I started following what I was learning. What I was doing was I was doing handwritten letters. I was targeting out-of-state owners. So that was the marketing. I was like the strategy. I was the type of list I was pulling, and I was doing handwritten letters, and I would mail them off.
How many were you doing, and like how much were you spending on the direct marketing you were doing?
Right. So my first deal, I spent a total of like $600, and I probably sent out close to about 300 mailers total. I was sending them out like weekly. I would put it out every night. I would probably do like 10 to 15, 20 of them, stack them up, and then I have stamps and I would send them off. I was doing it very manual, very like, It was.
I'm laughing, Isaac, because what you don't know is, when me and my wife first started, we were entering the flipping, but we really needed a start because I had a bumpy road. I was a Wall Street guy and I got into lots of developments and real estate, but I ended up losing all of it. And that's when me and my wife took the plunge to start flipping houses. But me and my wife, I remember I'd get back from the office, the Wall Street job. I'd get back to the office or the house, which we had a bedroom that was our little office. And me and Larissa would do exactly what you did. We would handwrite letters. And we would personalize the envelopes. And we would do that from, after dinner, 6:30 till 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. And we would try all sorts of things, putting glitter in there. So when they opened the letter, glitter came out and it pissed them off, but they never forgot us. I love it, man. I love that you were handwriting because so many people cut, the corners and they just go and pay a service to do this pre-populated thing. Guess where those end up? In the garbage. But when a letter is handwritten, maybe just on the outside, I mean, everybody listening to this, do you open the ones that are hand addressed to you? You do, don't you? Because in your mind, what are you thinking? Oh, there might be a check in here. Who could be sending me this? But if it's all computer generated, what do? You throw that shit out. Kudos to you for doing the hard work, man.
Yeah. I called it stuffing for bucks. That's what I used to do. And I had friends that would help me out. And I got my first couple calls with just angry people reaching out to me. But then I got a phone call one day from a seller. And it was so ironic. Again, God, it was from the blessing of God. The homeowner lived the house behind my grandmother's house that I grew up in. So he gave the address of the property. He said Belmont Street. And as soon as he said Belmont, I said, the neighborhood was called Center Homes. I'm like, this isn't Center Homes. So I'm talking to him. And I stop him and I say, hey, Vincent, I still remember the guy. Again, this is in 2014. I said, hey, Vincent, I grew up in Center Homes. He was like, oh, yeah, I grew up there too. He was like, well, who's your family? I was like, well, my grandmother is Diane and my father is Isaac. He was like, no way. He was like, yo, I went to high school with your dad. We ran track together. And at that point, that deal was so easy because he pretty much gave me the deal at that point. So
because it was a relationship, you had commonality. You guys had that common bond, and that's so powerful.
Yup. So at that point, I offered him $50,000 for the house. We negotiated up to $65,000. At the same time, I was sending out letters to investors too. So I had met a good investor, and I had fears that these investors wouldn't take me serious. And I had this one investor, his name is Travis. This guy's doing commercial storage units now, commercial buildings. He's out of residential now. And he helped me through the deal. So he came on the appointment with me. I didn't have it under contract. This is something that I don't always suggest, but if you have a strong relationship, you can bring your investors on your appointments if you guys have a commonality. Because if the investor takes the deal from you, but it doesn't do him no benefit because it's one deal. But if he sees your potential, so long story short, he said, look, I can pay you $77,500 the most. Whatever you can get it under that, do your thing. So I tried to get it at $50,000. I was trying to hit a home run. The guy said, look, that's a little too low for me. We negotiate to 65. I made $12,500 on my first deal. And Chris, I remember when I left the title company and I had that check, I was sitting in, and it's funny because I had a 2012 Range Rover Sport at this time, but I had it from my past life. And I had money at this time too, Chris. I wasn't the one who was kind of, scraping for bucks. I did have some money set aside. But this was different. This was different from anything I've ever done in my life. And I was sitting there and I was holding this check, and it just took me 10 years. My life flashed in front of me. And I said, Isaac, if you continue on this path that you're going, that in 10 years from now, your life will be completely different. You won't have to have the same worries that you're having right now. You will have financial freedom. You will start being able to build generational wealth. And one of the things I was so passionate about back then was building a legacy. And I didn't even know what legacy was. It was just a sexy term that wealthy people were using. But I wanted that because I also had my first daughter, and she was less than 1 year old while all this was happening. So I was like, I seen the old me fading away and the new me, the business Isaac, the street Isaac, guy who was sagging his pants in the strip clubs, smoking weed, drinking, womanizing. That person was leaving and this business guy was forming, all from real estate. So real estate didn't just make me money. It helped me become a man. It helped me become a better father. It transformed my life. And that one check, I said, man, if I can just do this one time a month, I would make six figures. And I was barely doing that in my other life, risking my life. And at that point, man, I doubled down. I probably invested all that money back into marketing. And as we'll talk more, I went to some masterminds because I kind of hit some road bumps after that first deal. And I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Well, let's just keep rolling, man. I mean, I'm like just sitting back in my chair. Like, what were the speed bumps? Because every real estate investor, like, you could get off to a quick start, hit your first wholesale deal, and then go on a dry streak for 6 months. And most real estate investors would quit. But, you know, those speed bumps are learning lessons. Like, I hate it when people get into real estate, they hit one home run, maybe they get one flip that like they made money, one wholesale deal that they made money, and they think, I know how to do this now. Well, no, you don't. Matter of fact, if you think you know, you're going to fail. And a lot of times that's exactly what life hands you, is the next is a failure. And, you know, it's the important part is that you make it through the failures, because that's where you learn. You don't learn much by hitting a home run. You just don't. You learn when you fail. So let's talk about those speed bumps.
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, so here's something I tell all my mentees is that the worst thing you can do is close your first real estate deal. The worst thing you can do is make your first $100,000. The worst thing you can do is make your first $1 million. And the reason why is because you got to do it again, right? Once you set that bar, you can't perform under that. So once I did my first deal, what I realized is that I didn't have a business and I couldn't predict it. Like, I didn't have a system behind what can generate me leads consistently. I didn't have a CRM at this time. I didn't know about follow-ups. Like, I was literally just winging it. Like, in the car, seller called me, pull over, find the back of the napkin, write it all out. Then go wash my car, throw the lead out. Now I'm home like, yo, what happened to the lead? No voice recordings, nothing. I'm just blowing money. And I didn't have no business. So by the end of that year, I did went ahead and did like 3 or 4 more deals. My first year, I did make $65,000, which was cool, but it wasn't predictable. Every time I did a deal and I was back to square one, I was stressed because I didn't know when the next deal was going to come.
That's the worst part about real estate, is that unknown of when is the next deal? When is the next meal? And a lot of the worst part is when you make the money, a lot of real estate investors spend it. They just blow it. And then all of a sudden they're chasing and fighting. And it always it keeps you too focused on the sale and doesn't keep you focused on the systems and processes that must be built to duplicate this over and over. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I did was, Chris, from there, I said, you know what? I need help. My first mentor was cool, but it was a virtual training. Like, you just watch these 10 videos. It was only 10 videos. And it was one call a month. And he was a very popular guy. So there's 100 people on this hour call. And you'll be lucky if you got in through the queue. And the one time I got in through the queue, I forgot what my question was. And it didn't work for me. So I signed up for a motivated seller system that I could pull lists from. And they sent me an email to come out to a 3-day real estate wholesale summit in San Diego, California. And I had never really traveled anywhere at this time. Again, I'm 21 years old. I said, you know what? This is my chance. The guy's name was Kent Clothier. I don't know if you know Kent Clothier.
Oh my God. Did you know that Kent's my business partner?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Kent Clothier. Holy cow. Yep. Reverse wholesaling. I've known Kent for many, many years. I'm one of the Billionaire boardroom members. I just don't make it to as many of them as I like anymore. But yeah, Kent's been my partner now for going on 6 years, I think.
Wow. Tell Ken I said hi. I'm sure he remembers.
I sure will. I actually literally just talked to him the other day.
Nice. Yep. So I bought his Find Cash Buyers Now system when that was really, it's still really popular. I still close deals from his. I know he sold it to Corey, the system, but I still use it to this day. I went out there to San Diego, California. I said, you know what? I'm transforming my life going out to this 3-day summit. I went out there. I met Justin Colby. I met Kent Clothier. I met Sean Terry. I met Rita Dallas. I know she's not with them anymore, I don't think. But I met the whole family. And I was so inspired because I was by all these millionaires, right? I was by all these successful people. And the one thing I loved about Kent's story and Sean's story and everybody's story is that even though they were successful people, they all been through shit in their life. Like they all had this time in their life where it was either fight or flight. And I can resonate with that. And I swear I was like listening to all their stories. I was literally crying inside because I was like, I'm in the right place. And then they started teaching us about the systems, the KPIs, the RGAs, the marketing, the 1% rule with your marketing, the KPIs, 20 offers to one contract. And then once Sean Terry and broke that down at that event, I joined their mastermind, and they also was doing a game that weekend, right? And it was like it was a networking game. And I had a selfie stick. This is when the selfie sticks first came out. I had a selfie stick, my cell phone, and I was running through that event like a groupie. I was meeting up with everybody, doing selfies, doing videos, pull Kent to the side. Kent, can we shoot a video? And I joined their boardroom mastermind in 2016. And at the end of that event, I actually won like their rock star student. They gave me like this big old 14, 15-inch iPad. He pulled me up to the front of the room and said, Isaac, and I still got the video. He said, Isaac, I've been watching you this entire event. You played full out, dude. Like, and at the rate that you're going, if you stay with this energy and tenacity, you're going to go places. And that was it. I said, man, listen, man, I got this dude from the West Coast, this millionaire telling me that I was great. He confirmed everything I knew my entire life. And I joined their boardroom. And in that 1 year, I'm telling you, Chris, I used the same strategies. Every once in a while, I'll try a new mentorship. And what I learned from Kent and then back then is the same system and flow that I use to this day. Nothing changes. And I mean, that was all I needed. And that took my business from guessing to predicting based off the numbers. And I mean, I've been 300 deals plus now, flips, rental portfolio of over $5 million, but yeah, that was the game changer. I went and got some high level mentorship. And then I went back the next year. And the biggest thing I took away from the next year, it was something very small, Google reviews. So like, I started getting like Google reviews on my like building up my Google reviews. That's like the one thing I can think off the top of my head. And most of our deals, sellers are saying, hey, look, I checked out your page. I see you got great reviews. So we put a system in place with that. But again, that's information from 5 or 6 years ago that I'll be making money for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up. It's funny. I just text Kent, a photo of you talking. So we'll see what he says back. But that's pretty awesome. So many similarities there. And it's just great that you just kept going. Now let's just pivot a little bit. Let's go from, you're wholesaling, you're learning all these systems, you're getting mentors, you're getting around the right people, you're changing your network, changing your life. And then all of a sudden you start dabbling and flipping. And based on the time frame, I can totally see why you did this. I mean, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18. I mean, straight up to, last couple of years, flipping has been really, a great place to be, but it is a pain in the ass. Me and my wife have flipped 273 houses or 274. I don't even know to date. And I can't think of one that was easy. I can't think of one that everything just went perfectly smooth. Some you win, some you lose. Like, what was that transition like? Because now you got contractors. Now you're working with lenders or banks or private lenders. There's a whole different dynamic. Building. I mean, you're in New Jersey. I'm in New York. The building inspectors are just nightmares. The contractors are nightmares. It's just, I don't know if it's nationwide, but I just feel like our areas are just ultimately tough and our taxes suck ass. So like, why flipping and how did that go for you?
Right. So, I mean, my flipping experience has been a little bit different and I'll break that down to you, but I'll tell you what changed my vision to go into flipping. In 2018, the end of 2018, I had this really good investor and I'm still good friends with him now. His name is Steve. I wholesaled him a deal I made $28,000 on this deal. It was an out-of-state owner who inherited a property. Her asking price, I was able to give her an asking price and made $28,000 on the house. He called me when the house was under contract to sell. And he said, hey, Isaac, remember the deal that you sold me in Shark River Hills? He said, look, it sold for $30,000 over appraised value, right? So as he's ranting and bragging about this, I'm sitting back breaking down the numbers. So I'm like, all right, you bought it for me for $178. He said he put about $60,000 into it, and he sold it for it appraised at $420, sold it for $440 or $450, one of them numbers. So I'm like, okay, 28, that's about $150 to $170. I said to myself when I hung up that call, I said, if I just believed in myself a little bit more, I could have made $200,000 on this property. I never sold him a deal after that. Not intentionally, but my investor list grew, and then I started taking on some of the projects. Now, I won't lie. It took me going through two bad contractors to get to one contractor. So I can't ignore the nightmares that I did go through. My first contractor, I bought a piece of land. I still own it to this day for $11,000. I built a home. This is back when you can build a property. It's a 1,500 square foot house. I built it for about $130,000. That same build now is probably $80,000 to $100,000 more. And I kept it as a rental. But the contractor pretty much ran off at the end of the project. Luckily, he didn't do it in the middle of the project. He left when it was like $15,000 left. He might have costed me an extra $20 out of my pockets. And I learned that these contractors, I went to a lawyer. He's like, hey, look, man, to be honest, it could be a lot worse. I don't recommend us go after him. He probably doesn't have nothing. I'll send him a little demand letter, but it's a tough cookie. Here's what I recommend. Go find somebody else, finish your project, go on, pretty much go on with your life, So I had that ordeal. I found another contractor. We did good on 3 projects. And then the half of the third and the fourth project, when things went bad with him, I'm in a lawsuit to this day. That was back in 2021. I won a $110,000 judgment with him, which it sounds sexy, but nothing. But it's funny. My lawyer.
Did he actually pay?
No, not yet. Actually about to warrant him an arrest so my lawyer can talk to him now. So
I've been there. It's just a long, slippery slope that just never seems to have an end.
And it literally took me, Chris, from them 2 projects, the 13, because I was using Lima One Capital for them loans, and luckily
Lima's terrible.
Yeah, I don't use them anymore. But the one thing I was happy about is they do 13-month terms versus 12-month terms. And I literally refinanced out the rentals, and I still got them properties on the 13th month. Because the guy, I was doing it virtual because I was in Atlanta and I got a business partner. I was managing here in Jersey, and he just kept stringing us along. But we found another contractor. We got them deals done. Now, this contractor I got now, he's been a blessing. He's really been a blessing for us. I've done 8 projects with him. All of our homes have sold within 30 days on the market. Inspectors, I haven't really had a lot of issues with inspectors, but it's 1 or 2, in every municipality. There's 1 or 2 tough ones. But what I do with the inspectors is this. Number one, I don't let my contractors cut corners. But I go to every township myself and I introduce myself. So a lot of times when I close on a property, some towns will let you do the demolition, roof, windows, siding. Some won't. So I'll go in there and I'll just get permission from them. Hey, look, we're submitting our plans. What can we do? What can't we do? I kind of try to set the tone. Most of the time you're only speaking with the secretary lady. So it really doesn't do much because the inspector doesn't see you. But I've been fortunate to have good experience with most of the inspectors that I've crossed paths with. Every deal I've sold here in Jersey last year, I know the market is a little bit shakier right now, but I'm about to test it. I'm finishing a property right now, and we'll see how the market is. But Ocean, Monmouth County, New Jersey is really, really hot. I really haven't had problems selling any projects. I did lose $70,000 on a property in Lava last year, but it sold fast. But I lost a lot of money on the deal. So I really haven't had too many issues. I think the biggest thing with these projects is like, you always want them done faster than they get done. So, but I just deal with one general contractor. Like I didn't ever want to get into the sub end, dealing with different personalities, writing different checks. I deal with one guy. The beautiful thing is wholesaling has helped me. Like, Chris, I buy all my deals at, even in today's market, I'm buying them 65 cents on the dollar. So my contractor gives me good price and I'm paying anywhere from like $70 to $80 a square foot. Most of my projects, like this one I'm in right here, they're pretty much most of the time full guts that I do, or majority of them. I did a couple condos that were like light work, but I got a pretty smooth system, but sometimes I like want it to go faster than what it's going. But I literally was telling my partner, I'm thinking about us transitioning back into just heavy wholesaling. Because what I don't like about the fix and flips is that even though I have the rehab draws coming back and forth, I'm giving my contractor my marketing dollars to get work. And I'm giving them 20, 30K. I got 3 projects. I'm giving them $80,000 out of my pockets, and where I can be using that to just do more real estate deals. So I'm thinking about cutting back on the flips, maybe having one going or one rental or one flip. But I'm trying to scale up in the wholesaling process because, like I just made $48,000 on one wholesale deal yesterday. I got like
$48,000.
$48,000.
That's more than you can make on a lot of flips and a hell of a lot less work.
Yeah, right. So that's been my experience with the flips, man. I can honestly say from a scale to 1 to 10, I can give it overall a 7.5 to an 8.
You're way ahead of me. I think I've just done a lot more of them. Here in New York, where I'm at, the building inspectors are awful. You did do one thing really that I admire is you were going to the building departments, meeting the inspectors in person, which then kind of, they know who you are. Where I think I went wrong is we were scaling so fast and we were on our way to getting a show with HGTV. So we were doing like 20 houses a month. I had project managers. So the inspectors never met us. Maybe my wife they'd talk to on the phone or via email, but it was always our project manager that would go out and meet them. And they were so critical of like the stupidest things. And we did big projects like we would take walls down, you got architectural plans and just the stuff we went through. I mean, like it doesn't seem big if I say it, but everything costs a nickel or a dime. It's just everything adds up. So the more times the inspector just adds stuff, that chips away your profit because you're not going to get any more money. Like the money's made on the buy and your budget's your budget. And if you start going over that budget, you're starting eating into your profit. There's no way. I mean, the days of houses going way over ask, they're probably long gone for at least a little while. So being in, this market environment, I think you're right. Houses are still selling. It's still, a market that feeds the sellers because there's a lot of demand depending on the price point. The higher price points, no, but the lower, yes. But I think you just got to be really careful. And I think you're smart pivoting back to wholesaling because if you go back to 2006, you wouldn't have wanted to been the last one holding the property. You wanted to be out and then pivoting in something more nimble, which is, I think, what you're talking about, because we are no question in a bubble. We are no question in an economy that is about to fall apart. All we've got right now is employment numbers, and the Fed's going to take those down. So once employment starts ticking up, which it already is, you're just not seeing it yet because it's lagging information. So all of that stuff's going to feed in. And I don't care how much demand there is. When people lose their jobs, and interest rates are high or higher than they are now, people cannot afford the pricing right now. So, which leads me to the last segment of this, and we'll blaze through it, is you started doing rentals. Now, my rental experience, I started in rentals and in 2009, started buying rentals. And then in 2014, I ended up having to sell all the rentals. It was a big story, not for today. But then after that, we flipped. But what happens in flipping is it's such a cash flow intensive business. You're always putting money out. And I don't know, New Jersey, I can't remember if you were an attorney or a title state, but here in New York, it takes forever to close. So we would go broke waiting for houses to sell. And then when we get to sell, we'd have all the money, but then it would just go right back in. So it was just always, you're just chasing your tail. So what we started doing is we started renting houses that maybe we didn't think we could get the profit we wanted because we had profit minimums. And if we couldn't, we would just rent it. We would do the BRRRR strategy and we'd started building those up. We got up to 91 doors and rentals. But then the pandemic hit, when we had not 90, but we had quite a few. And, basically here in Buffalo, New York, they said you don't really have to pay rent. I mean, that was essentially the messaging from the government. You don't have to pay rent. It's okay. And guess what our tenants did, especially the properties that we had just acquired that had tenants, they stopped paying rent. And that was the end for me. I just said, I'm done. The market got really frothy and I just sold off everything. And now all I do today is I'm just the bank. I became the bank. I just lend money. A mentor, which you may know, Greg Hurling, partners also with Ken Clothier. Greg Hurling, early on in my career, 2015, he said to me, the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. So I've transitioned 100% to being the bank. You haven't done that yet, which, maybe someday you will, but let's just spend, a few minutes talking about how did you start acquiring rentals? Was it a component of something like mine where you just needed the cash flow or you got stuck with some properties, or was it a whole different animal that you were trying to build up?
Right. Great question. I think it's very similar to the story that I said with my investor that I was bragging about how he made $170,000 on the flip. I was sitting in my office one day with my business partner and, I'm the visionary for our company, but I was sitting back and I was talking to him. I say, yo, we don't flip all these houses and we don't own nothing. We don't really own nothing. We was having this conversation like 2019, 2020. And that's what kind of started triggering the idea of us buying the rental properties. Through my mentorship program, I met a student that was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right? This is my first taste of the Midwest. This young kid was very ambitious, very hungry. Everything I told him to do, he was doing. And he went on a property appointment to see a 4-unit property in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The seller wanted $50,000 for this property, right? So my mind blew because here in New Jersey, $50,000, you'd be lucky if you can get a down payment with that. So I'm like, $50,000 for 4 units. So I started getting really interested in that market. So when from 2019 to 2020, when we went to COVID, I started buying a bunch of buildings in Milwaukee from single families up to 6 units. And I racked up out of my 30 doors, I racked up about 25 of them in Milwaukee. And I did it all in a matter of a year. Most of them out, and to be honest, most of them I was even buying them cash too, because I was just getting them so quickly. I was just buying up all these properties. And, I didn't know the market was totally different there. Like the values are lower. You can't do the same type of renovation budgets on your properties. So it took me some time to kind of get this portfolio rolling. Like just in the last 6 months, I finally got it like almost it's passive. Like I done found a property manager about a year and a half ago. Luckily, my tenants did the same thing. But in Milwaukee, this is why a property manager was really cool. They had the what is it called? The programs for the people. Pretty much they paid the rent for the tenants. It was like a community activist program that they have there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So what my property manager was doing with everyone that wasn't paying was just pretty much getting them to fill out these forms. Now, granted, they might go 6 months without paying me, and I was taking a hit on it. Luckily, they were cash deals, but my cash was literally not doing nothing for me. Like it's like I almost felt like I just threw my money away. Like, I'm like, man, I should have just bought a car for all this and just at least been able to be happy and enjoying what I work for. But over time, it ended up working itself out where I was recouping late fees, rents. So from every tenant, like either we were evicting some of them, and then the ones that were staying, we were able to get the money through the community advocate program. And now our portfolio is pretty much fully turned over. We just had one tenant leave, but it's fully occupied minus 1 unit. And I'm on average making like $500 a month per door profit on all of the units. All my rates are pretty much locked in around like a 4.1, 4.2. So obviously I picked these up when the rates were good. And, them properties right there, I mean, they have a little bit wear and tear from time to time, but it works for me. It feels good. The first of the month, and it's about to come up, and I got that money guaranteed. And it's $15,000 passively guaranteed is so much better than $100,000 a month, breaking your neck, hustling actively, spending all your cash. Where literally, like, I know what you're talking about. You're going broke till closing, and the minute you get, like, you can't even enjoy the $100,000 in your bank account because everybody's hand is already in it. So like, that's pretty much my experience with the rentals. I finally got it turned over. I got a 5-year plan with the portfolio, so I'm in year 3. I plan to sell it all off. I'm studying a commercial real estate right now, so that's what I really want to get into now. I'm hands off on my business. Like, only thing I come in is like, are we wholesaling this deal? Are we flipping it? Are we keeping it? I got an entire staff and a team, so it kind of frees me up to kind of look at the next endeavors. And I think the multifamily is really what I want to look into. I'm taking a training course with a guy named Josh Cantwell. I don't know if you know Josh Cantwell.
Yeah, Josh has been on my show.
Yep. So I'm doing one of his mentorship programs. I love Josh's story. He's a cancer survivor like me. That's what kind of connected me with him. And like, his just information is so easy to understand. So I'm trying to jump into that room now and just, I want the passive income. I've been 9 years, and it's like, I'm very successful. I have money, but I just see people get into apartment buildings in 1 year, and it's like, yo, I got 98 units. And I'm like, what the heck? You don't even, like, not that you don't deserve it, but that's not fair. How I've been in it 10 years, busting my ass, sacrificing, I learned everything, master my business, and I'm still chasing money. And you got 98 units, and you probably don't even know what a cap rate is yet. So, yeah.
I think the thing is just the path. I mean, and it's not wrong and it's not right. It's just, you decided to go the route. Like, I went the same route you did. I started with flipping, not wholesaling, but we both went the same route. And unfortunately, the route we went is transactional. You live and die by the deal. And then eventually, like, we both landed into the rental space, and we're like, wait a second, I don't live and die by the deal anymore. Every month the checks come in, barring any vacancies. So your mindset just went a different way than theirs. I wouldn't fight it or think that there's so much ahead of you. I would think that the knowledge that you got in the last 10 years of doing this, 9 years of doing this, doing the hard shit, will pay off in this next thing. The only advice I'd give you, and, I'm from a different side of the table here when it comes on the money side. And, one thing I've got from my years in Wall Street and my studies is I know economic patterns incredibly well. You said you've got a 5-year plan, and you're 2 or 3 years in. I can't remember what you said.
3 years.
3 years in. Waiting to sell those rentals for another 2 years could be a bad decision. Okay. I can't predict the future, but I can certainly tell you that you'll probably be selling a lot lower than you could sell for today. So just take that into consideration. And I also would not be in a rush to jump into the larger apartment complexes. Just wait it out. You almost want to be in a period of just a hold pattern right now. Just keep doing your wholesaling, keep doing the business. Maybe, like you said, 1 or 2 flips, and, just nothing that stresses you out, and just wait for the market to bring you what you want. Don't force it. Don't fight the FOMO, and try to think you're missing out. You're missing nothing but a high market, because everything's overpriced right now in a big way. Contractors are overpriced right now. Properties are overpriced right now. So if you start buying into the bigger rentals, you're going to overpay, and the market's going to fall out from underneath you. So your exit strategy is going to just be wait and hold. Now, if that's the strategy for your rentals, great. You'll be just fine. But a lot of people have that strategy where they want to sell in a couple of years. You're going to sell into a much lower market than where we're in today. So just take that for whatever it's worth. And we're about out of time here, but I know you've got twins coming. So can you just spend 2 seconds talking about what this means to you? Because this is, like, you talked about legacy earlier, but you've got, how many children do you have now? Just one?
So I have 2 girls right now. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I have 2 twin girls coming in September. So,
wow.
It's really a blessing for me, Chris. Being a father for me is just about having a responsibility, to lead my children in the right direction, just not even from a business standpoint, just from a life standpoint. So I'm always trying to be an example for them. And I got girls. So, I got to be very cautious about the example I'm setting for them, because one day, unfortunately, I hate to think about it, they're going to go off. They're going to end up, probably marrying or being interested in guys. So I want them to use me as an example of what a man should be.
Love that.
I'm super, super excited. Real estate affords me to be able to take time off, take my time with my children, and not be stuck to a 9 to 5. So I'm just excited to welcome them into our home. We just bought a house beginning of this year. So, we've been getting their rooms all together. And it's just a blessing, another addition to the family, and it's another addition to the legacy. I'm putting them on my life insurance policies. I'm beneficiaries of my trust funds. So I'm living a legacy, man. So that's what I'm excited about my girls, and now I'm a lot more mature as I've obviously had children. My 9-year-old's about to be 10, and my 5-year-old. I'm a lot more mature and wiser now. I'm not. A couple years ago, I was still chasing. Just like my first daughter, I was really chasing. My second daughter, I was really chasing business. Now I'm kind of in cruise control. I don't force things. It comes to me. My business is set up. So I have more time to be present in the little things because they grow so fast. Like they're born.
They do. They sure do.
1 year old. And then before you know it, they're 5 and then they're 10. So I'm going to make sure I use this time to focus on a moment.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Editors, cut that part out, please. And I'll cue them up. All right. So as we kind of wrap this, I love that you've, got your legacy plan. You're doing all that. One other suggestion I'll give you is, because I've got a 3-year-old, and when she was probably about almost 2, I had the opportunity to do a TEDx talk. I did it out in New York City, and the TEDx talk is called "A Letter to My Daughter, Rethink Money." And it's literally one that I think you'd benefit from. And any of the listeners listening, if you are a father and you're wondering, like, how do I become the man that I want my daughter to look for? And how do you teach your children or your daughters, the lessons about money in life? This TEDx talk is for you. It's straight from the heart. It truly is a letter that I wrote to my daughter that someday I hope she lives by. And I'd like to share out that with all of you as just a selfless plug here. So it's called "A Letter to My Daughter, Rethink Money." So Isaac, definitely check that out. I think you'll really like it, especially with 2 twins on the way. But as we wrap this up, like, how would people get a hold of you? How would they learn more, follow your journey? And, hey, there's got to be someone out there that's listening to this. It's in the same place you were when you first started, and they're looking for that hand to help guide them. So where do we find you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Mr. Isaac Grace. So I spell Isaac ISSAC. I'm on Facebook, Isaac Grace. I do have a mentorship program, Creating Cash and Real Estate Academy. We only charge $97 a month, and we help.
Awesome.
We help new and novice students get started in wholesaling real estate. So we pretty much live classes, courses, trainings. The website is creatingcashandrealestateacademy.com. If you guys want some free real estate gifts, some closing cheat sheets, you can text the word HOPE to 732-314-7978. And I'll leave you guys with a quote that I live by. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. So no matter where you are in your life, I mean, I've been through tough times. Chris has been through tough times. But if you can be tougher than that storm, than that season, you will always come out victorious. And so many people want to quit. And the formula to success is simply just not quitting, because if you get past that season or that time of unsureness or unknown, there's a blessing on the other side of that. So that's always been something that I live by. Tough times don't last. Tough people do. I call myself the millennial hope dealer. Hope stands for helping others pursue excellence. So I'm a very big advocate about helping millennial entrepreneurs, because when I got started, it wasn't a lot of relatable mentors that was willing to give a helping hand. Like I had to pay Ken. I paid him $25,000 to get into that room and really expand my knowledge. And, I give it away for pennies on a dollar because I want to see people win. And I'm also open up my horizon for other partnerships. So that's how you guys can find me. And Chris, I thank you for today. I really appreciate this talk. I'll definitely be checking your page out more. And I'm happy we got some colleagues that we know. And I wish you and your family and your 3-year-old the best.
Hey, thank you so much, folks. We'll put all those links in the description so you can follow Isaac's journey. You can get him as a mentor, $97 a month, folks. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, I haven't heard that in a long time. And it's so cool that back in, 2014, his first mentor was 97. He carried that legacy on. So his trainings are now 97 a month, which there just is nothing that inexpensive out there that I've seen. So folks, before you depart this podcast, make sure you remember this one thing. It's not the knowledge that you got here. It's how you apply the knowledge that will set you apart and pave the way for the financial future you want. So thanks for joining us for another episode. We'll see you next time.